Well, welcome and good evening. Thank you guys for being here for the Neighborhood Passions Affinity Network, presented by Google and Neighbor to Neighbor. As Jim has said, I'm Valerie O.T. Nellis, and I'm going to be hosting this evening's event. We'll be focusing on crime reduction and prevention as our passion, and we're going to be talking about getting ready for the National Night Out Against Crime. So the National Night Out Against Crime typically is held in August, but I've heard this evening that that is changing around the country due to the heat in August. It makes a lot more sense to do it later in October, perhaps. But typically, it happens annually. And it's a community building and campaign to promote police community partnerships and neighborhood camaraderie. So, what's going on in neighborhoods across the metropolitan area? What are they going to be doing this year? So we're going to get a lot of great ideas from our guest speakers. Tonight we have Liz Parrot, who is a member of the Nations neighborhood. We have John Stern, who is the Cane Ridge community in the Cane Ridge Community Trust, and we have Jessica, who is with MMPD East Precinct. So we're excited to hear from all of them and just find out what's going on with National Night Out. John,
And Valerie,
yes,
we really have got to acknowledge this is a big honor for us. Yeah, John is over at the Cane Ridge right now, but he is one of the founder of Neighborhoods Resource Center, which is Neighbor to Neighbor, and has been a long time. Don't want to say it that way, John, but a long time neighborhood advocate. So I just wanted to say,
yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And Liz is also a founding member of the Nations. So again, we've got some staunch and avid community organizers. So John, I do want to start with you because you were a part of the group that also founded and established National Night Out here in Nashville. Will you tell us a little bit about how that came to be?
Well, yeah, back in the 90s, police community relations was a little different than they were today. It was more of a police dominant, neighborhood submissive kind of approach. And that didn't necessarily work real well. And we knew that as we moved through the broken windows theory of policing and the community policing models that came after that. So a good friend of mine, Janet Jernigan with the Senior Citizens Inc. back then, called and said, let's help make this a real countywide event. And so when you put her and me together, it pretty much
good things happen.
good things happen. And Valerie was at those tables, at those discussions, and a part of the Nashville Night Out Against Steering Committee. And we started the first year it was held, it was pretty dismal. We jumped in the second year and had a central event, which was successful, and a smattering of events around the county. By the time I think we jumped off in 2000 or 2001, we were hosting a central event downtown, 4 regional events around the county for people that didn't have neighborhood organizations but wanted to be a part of a crime prevention program, and then over 125 neighborhoods engaged in the Night Out Against Crime. And as Valerie knows, we were at that point, our job was to provide support to neighborhoods. So water, food, outreach to public safety organizations, nonprofits, anybody that could be connected to the health and safety of our neighborhoods. And despite our efforts, we ended up winning some national awards for our work. So it was an amazing countywide.
Yeah.
And Helen, I know, was a part of that too. Weren't you, Helen?
Yeah. Thank you, Johnny. And I was telling him earlier, it was really a very exciting time all that energy around that and organizations. It was really great. So I want the folks who are here with us this evening kind of talk about what is everybody doing in their neighborhoods for if you're doing that celebration. What are you guys doing in your neighborhoods right now? How's it manifesting itself?
Well, I know Jenny's on here, but we have just kind of started getting planning for October 12th. I'll be helping long distance to get them set up, but with a West Precinct, and it'll be October 12th instead of the regular Tuesday in October is also the West Nashville Dream Center event. So we're switching it to the next week to get more people there. And we'll have Sylvan Park, Sylvan Heights, the Nations, usually James Robertson and Charlotte Park all together doing that.
That sounds good. Are there any specific things like in yours that may be a little different from other recognitions?
We bring together businesses, restaurants, law enforcement of all levels, as well as we usually have the Centennial Jam Band singers. Just because when I started at ours on the west side, we really wanted to focus on knowing your neighbors and knowing the businesses is how you really combat crime. So we really wanted to bring all the neighborhoods together because we're all so close over there. And
Right.
so we brought all types of businesses and vendors and free food so everybody can just come out and enjoy it.
Right. Very good. Jessica, what's going on over in East Nashville for Nashville Night Out?
So East is going to be on August 3rd. We're doing the regular one. And it's going to be at East Park. We're going to have a huge event from 4 to 7 p.m. There's going to be bounce houses, face painting. Kroger stepped up in a big way, is donating a lot of food for the event. And we are also going to have live music. And the 510 Foundation is sponsoring that.
Very good. Excellent. What about out there in Cane Ridge, John? What's going on out there?
Well, I gotta tell you, I don't know. Oddly enough, my neighborhood's not doing anything. We're the Carruthers Crossing neighborhood, and they aren't engaged.
Okay.
I think that there is a lot of work that needs to be done again to kind of get communications coordinated. What we always suggested, and Liz and Jessica said it perfectly, is that it's about food, it's about fun, it's about refreshments, a little frivolity maybe. Face painting is good.
Yeah.
But really anything that brings neighbors out of their houses and into interaction with each other. I guess as long as they're vaccinated or socially distanced. But I believe that the partnership out here with the business organizations are conducting an event, but let's say it needs to be heightened a bit, I think.
That's right. Thank you so much. So what about our audience? Do any of your neighborhoods conduct night out events?
Well, Belshire is not having an event this year. We've had it in the past, but we're not having it this year. We haven't had it in the last couple of years, as a matter of fact. But we usually have a big one here in this neighborhood. But the Madison Precinct is going to host an event, so a lot of the people going to attend that. And then I think Swap School used to have one that a lot of people go to. Parkwood for this district is going to host a huge one this year.
Thank you. Is there still an organizing committee for National Night Out across the city? Or people have just kind of taken such ownership of it? You know, your precincts are kind of coordinating. I don't know that there was at one time, you know, as John has said, we had folks from all across the city who came together to coordinate for the city. I don't know, is that happening? Does anyone know?
So this year, the mayor's office has gotten all the community coordinators together for each precinct
Okay.
and is trying to encourage the precincts to do one night out per precinct.
Mm-hmm.
They have been also talking about next year doing a singular night out for the entire county. So I'm not sure what that would look like, or if the neighborhoods really want to give up that much of their identity to do like a singular event. Though we would be able to put more, not more effort, but we'd have more resources at the event if it was just one.
Right. Okay. So we've kind of been doing it the same way for a number of years now. What about some ideas out of the box that we could probably incorporate, you know, for the 21st century in terms of this type of event? What are your thoughts? And that's anyone.
Yeah, clearly changing the date to something that's a little more comfortable would probably be highly desirable.
Mm-hmm.
And creating a coordinating committee once again to bring resources together and allocate them according to some fashion would probably be a good thing. We tried to market this as Nashville's night out against crime, but the national people didn't like us infringing on their copyright. So maybe if we could make something that's a little more identifiable. Jim, you're great at doing that, identifying names and marketing methodologies.
Mm-hmm.
That would probably be helpful.
Yeah. What else? What are some other ideas we need to kind of think about? As we're thinking about trying to draw in maybe younger people into the event, what are some things we can kind of think about to kind of rejuvenate the event, so to speak?
You know, one of the things that is a reality is that crime is not as bad here as it used to be. Now, there are areas where there is still a lot of crime. And I also know that there are people who are moving here who just can't believe the amount of crime, when some of the folks that have been here a long time are like, I've heard a couple of, what do you mean? This is great. So I think there's some changes there. But, you know, I think that what makes crime reduction happen in neighborhoods is neighbors knowing neighbors and working with one another. And so while I want to celebrate the idea of these big events, I think what would really move things forward are hyper localized events that maybe don't put so much emphasis on MNPD being part of them, because I know that we have a very small police force. And even, you know, having 10 night out against crimes on one night or over 2 months or whatever is a drain.
Mm-hmm.
But promoting in those moments, you know, having your neighbors perform, not where they need a big music stage, but maybe on a front porch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe closing a block and having a line of tables down. I think Nations does this, a line of tables down the middle of it where people can have a potluck together and eat together. Those are the kinds of things that are, I would say, more valuable than any national awards that we could possibly have, because that is the relationships that are needed to happen. And even if MNPD is only able to send for a minute the police officer who is primarily responsible for that block in that given shift to just stop by and say hi, I think that's enough, because it ultimately, it really is about the neighbors. And the neighbors working together. And so that's one of the things I've been thinking about. I like, and I really appreciate what Jessica and Liz and so many others are, and CNAP is doing with these big events. But maybe having some more hyper local events that didn't have so much flair and maybe didn't try to have so many people. I think that would be a good thing to do.
And that's
The
what
nation,
that's
oh,
what
sorry.
the events were successful, that were small. It used to be the public works would be the ones closing off the street. So I don't know who is anymore because they got this new transportation department or something. But you're exactly right, Jim. I mean, it's shutting down the street, inviting the neighbors, cooking some hot dogs, and getting together.
If you're in West Precinct, don't even attempt to shut down a street. Commander Corman hates it.
Yeah.
You need to find a spot, another spot, either at the park or at St. Luke's, because he will deny it every time.
Oh my goodness.
But what we do, before I moved in the Nations, we started having monthly social outings where we would have it either a local restaurant or at the park so people could come together. And then during COVID, we had Play on Your Porch, where any of the musicians could come out, play on their porch, and people walked around. So it was a great way to really get to know your neighbors and know who's around.
Yeah, love that. Porch parties. Excellent. Very good.
And I'd also just say that, as we're coming around this time of the year, and some of them do this, I've seen it, but for precincts to have open houses that people can come to, that's the other side, is getting people to actually go into their precinct, even though I know they're locked a lot of times because there's nobody in there during the regular hours. Just having that kind of open reception where people can come in, can meet the commander, and do that is also a great thing.
And check with your precinct. I don't know if East does it yet, but I know West has a monthly coffee with a cop and kind of round table where everybody, businesses and neighbors, can go talk to them.
And Jim, when the night that we host the Nashville Night Out, we had a lot of stuff donated to us. Kroger, we wrote a letter. Kroger donated hot dogs and hot dog buns, and fire department gave us ice, and there was a place over in Metro Center that owns equipment like the popcorn machines and stuff like that. They actually donated that, but we had to buy the popcorn, and we had to buy. So there was a lot of stuff donated to us tonight that we had it, which turned out to be really good, and you didn't come out of pocket with a lot of money, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for anybody that remembers, there used to be a Purity Dairy cow on a trailer, and we had this crazy guy that used to participate in this thing by the name of Billy Fields. And he said he was willing to do anything for the effort as long as he got the cow for his night out against crime in East Nashville. And so that's usually where it went.
Yeah, good old Billy. Always down for the cause, right? So what are the challenges you think that National Night Out Against Crime faces currently?
Right now, I mean, there is still a lot of political issues and distrust of the police, unfortunately. And that was one of the reasons I started 10 years ago doing, actually 11 years ago now, Nashville Night Out, was so people can meet their officers that are around and get to know them, so that it's not you don't just see them in the bad times.
Right.
You don't just see them in, when you're being pursued or something, and they can get to know them on a different level. And also the officers can get to know the community on a different level. And it helps all around in calming down issues that have been really come to the forefront in the last couple of years, that can be avoided just by communication.
Yes. I've had people tell me that they have concern over everyone gathering, for the event, and then it leaves their homes kind of vulnerable. So they felt a little uncomfortable about that. Are there any other kind of challenges people see that we're faced with these days in terms of being able to do this event?
Well, I don't know. You guys at the Resource Center know this better than I. But what's the level of engagement in neighborhoods at this point?
Hmm.
I gotta. I feel a little exasperated that maybe it is not where it should be
Hmm.
by its level of importance to this community, or where it has been in the past. And
Right. Hmm.
I'll let others talk about that. That's just what it feels to me. There's less engagement. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. And again,
Yeah.
someone mentioned that we have this whole crew of folks who've moved into our city, and they may not be familiar with the event. You know what I mean? So it's, there's no, they don't have any knowledge about it as well.
And we had that problem in our neighborhood because you had the old timers and then it came in and got completely gentrified. So it, for several years, it was the old timers versus the tall skinnies.
Yeah.
And we were finally able to get together and come together and bring a wide range of people got involved with the association. But it's still, we need more. But with all these people moving in,
Hmm.
it's caused, you don't know your neighbors as much.
Right.
I just moved in January, and after 17 years in the same house, so it was refreshing to, like, the first day I was here, I had neighbors come over and introduce
Oh,
themselves.
yeah. Yeah. Very good.
I'll just also note, I think one of the other challenges that we're experiencing is information and event overload. There is just so much going on. And a lot of the events that are being held have a lot of money behind them. And so they're getting really publicized, and neighborhood organizations just don't have the kind of money that these groups have in order to be pushed up there and elevated. So I think that they really have to find creative ways to get people to know about your event. And the one way that has always worked best, which we do have the capacity to do, is to go out and actually talk to neighbors,
Mhm.
knock on the door,
Mhm.
and invite them.
Mm.
And personally, we've done Good Neighbor Day Festival for, well, it had been 8 years, right? And when we started, when we jumped from 350 to 3,500 people, that year we started and we delivered over 1,000 door knockers to the people that surrounded the park where we were having the event. And folks really come out. And one of the things they said was they felt welcome, they felt invited.
Mhm.
And I'll also say, because we were talking about this the other day, I think for any event that we hold as neighborhood organizations, hospitality is the most important component that you have to plan for and think about. And little things make a huge difference. Thinking about if you're going to have people greeting or working, making sure that the people who are up there and in charge reflect the diversity of your community.
Mhm.
Right now immediately we think racial, right? And because that's racial and ethnic diversity, but also and especially in these days, we also need to think about those that are under the iceberg, like politics. Are we reflecting the different diverse political opinions in our neighborhood? Can we bring those together for this night? Because in reality, crime reduction and prevention is important to all of us. We may have different ways of expressing it, but getting out there and getting people so that the leadership reflects the community is really important.
I think also thinking about diversity around disability. We really had to think hard about the site we chose for Good Neighbor Day, because how do we make sure folks who are in wheelchairs and things of that nature can move around the site. And making sure, the ground is level and there's not a bunch of sidewalks to go up and down on and things of that nature, to make your site welcoming to everybody. Mhm.
I guess I want to say something else just about the sizes of our neighborhoods today. And I'm since Ron's here, I'm going to pick on him. When Burdell Campbell was really in leadership over at historic Germantown, the number of residents that she had to reach out to get involved in her neighborhood was significantly less than the number of neighbors that Ron is dealing with today. And that's it, right, Ron?
By a factor of about 3 or 4.
That's or 10 or 12, John says. Yeah, I mean that's a significant challenge for your group to have to deal with, because maybe at this point the board really hasn't changed. It hasn't increased by 12 times. So that's a challenge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I will suggest, when you were talking about diversity, if you can make it also dog friendly, you will get a lot, at least on the west side, you will get a lot more people there if they can bring their dogs.
Right.
That was a big thing in the last couple of years for us.
Mhm. Very much so. Very much so. Mhm.
I'll point out that I joined tonight because I wanted to find out about Night Against Crime, and I had Night Out Against, and I've not heard of this in the last 4 years that I've been involved in with the association here in Germantown. The last couple of years anyway, naturally from the pandemic, but or the last year. And but we got an email from the North Precinct, and they essentially invited us to the night out, and it was as if they were hosting it. And let me read the email if I can get it, but it's basically they're having there's a church, several churches that they have, and they've got a 4-block area that's going to be shut off, and it's with the roads blocked. They've got food trucks, and the churches are going to provide entertainment, and they're also looking for things to do for the kids. And I thought, and they wanted to know if they essentially invited us to come. Would
Right.
some of your group attend? I was sure I will be there. But what I'm hearing from you all, it seems like you all are putting it on, are having to generate everything. And whereas what I'm hearing is, from what I'm getting from the Northern Precinct, is they're putting it on.
Mhm.
That's been a transition the last couple of years.
I can
Mhm.
add a bit to that from a West Precinct perspective. I know Liz had commented on West Precinct plans to put an event together in October, and I'm looking forward to talking more, hearing more about that. But I did have a conversation in the West Precinct who indicated that they have been told from on high that they should also have an event in August that they're going to be running. So he'd said they still plan to support what we want to do in October, but they're also going to have a night out against crime in October, in August.
August 3rd, yes.
Yeah. There's one in at Red Caboose Park in August that used to compete with ours as well. So that's why they're still doing that one in August, and then we'll do ours in October. It's just easier with our precinct covers a huge amount of acreage. So that kind of covers the Bellevue side, and we cover the closer inside usually. But yeah, we've kind of taken it on and done it ourselves the last 10, 11 years. But West Precinct's been involved significantly
Germantown
every
used
year.
to do a night out with Salem Town. And I think we're just sort of recovering from tornadoes and pandemic and kind of dropped it. And it's always hard to get volunteers to do it. But it was nice. Only a small group came in and out, but the kids liked it. We had ice cream.
Mhm.
And hopefully at some point we'll, get back to doing that. But again, it goes back to kind of what Jim was and everybody else is saying. It's getting the information out there to people, and letting them know that it's not just the board who is doing this. It's for everybody to come and know their neighborhood. And that's not easy.
What do y'all think about this? Is that we're ending up with kind of two events, depending on your neighborhood. What do you think about the idea that the precinct does one and then all the neighborhoods do, or maybe a collaboration of neighborhoods, do that? Does it kind of one take away from the other?
Yeah, I think you have to be careful. I for one, am a neighborhood driven kind of guy. And I like to see neighbors take the lead and start planning these things. And I don't know, May, June. In Ron's neighborhood, we always used to have an event. The main event was often at Centennial, at the park right across Jefferson Street.
Mm-hmm.
And so that happened quite a bit. But I like the idea of neighbors knowing neighbors. And the best way to do that is in the neighborhood and have support organizations come to the neighborhoods in support of the neighbors.
Yes.
I will say, Valerie, because I was over in East Nashville when the transition happened, and it was really interesting because it was announced that it was going to be one event in East Park. And it was really interesting because some neighborhood leaders were really, and I know, Anita, you chime in because I know you were part of that. Some neighborhood leaders were really upset because they felt like control for the event was taken away from them. Others were thankful because they didn't have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I do think that one of the problems that we do have in many neighborhood organizations is that people are aging out. And we have people who are older and they've done 20 years or 16 years. How many years, Liz? Not that you're aging out, but you've done it for quite a number of years, right?
17 on the association and about 11 on Night Out at Crime.
And just tired. And so change happens.
I'd be happy for West to take it over. We just pulled in, we didn't just have MNPD. We pulled in LEOs, state, local, sheriff, federal, just so everybody, there was a wide range and people would come and see that whole range.
I do think it's difficult when you go, and Jessica, I really would like to hear from you, but this is my suspicion and I want to test it with you. My suspicion is when you do a precinct-wide one, that the neighborhood leaders are supportive of that, but they're not doing as much as they would if it was in their own backyard. Does that
Absolutely.
seem? Yeah.
Absolutely. So basically, I kind of threw up my hands knowing that I was going to have to organize this whole thing. And that was the end of May. And I partnered with 510 Foundation, which is doing a lot of work to kind of reimagine, reorganize police work across the nation. And they're helping a lot with the event. But it's plan this event, by the way, you have no budget, and make it cool.
Yeah.
So yes, please help. Anybody.
Oh my goodness.
But I think that it also takes away some of the ownership, and I think having the ownership within the neighborhood is essential to creating safer neighborhoods. And neighborhoods need to feel like they can control their neighborhood.
Yeah.
And to John's point, I think that, one of the advantages of community, of the police department being more engaged, is that I know you all change every couple of years, depending on how long you're in your position, but you have the ability to bring the neighborhood leaders together. And as John said, if you started and not you, but in general, started in May talking about it and working with the neighborhood leaders on it, I think that partnership does well. And certainly, I love, Ron, I love that they're adding churches. I love that they're adding nonprofits, because this is something we all need to be involved in. But you shouldn't be finding out about it at the last minute. They should reach out to you and every neighborhood organization in the city and say, we're planning this. We want you to be involved in planning.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, or thoughts?
I have just one other comment, and it's something we're doing here in Germantown, because as Jim pointed out, there are a few more people here when Burdette moved in. We're actually funding block parties. So, and this has nothing to do with really Night Out Against Crime, but it's a way to, the association will pay a person or a family up to $200 to hold or conduct a block party
Oh,
to
that's
get to
cool.
know their neighbors. And the $200 will go for refreshments, cupcakes, whatever it may be. But in other words, just get to know your neighbors and get people to know each other. And it's on a micro level compared to Night Out Against Crime. But there are so many new people here, and they keep moving in and moving out that, and as you all know, I mean, in your neighborhoods also. So it's just another idea. Anyway, just toss that out. And
That's a really fantastic offer. Yeah.
And
so
Lacey, go ahead, Val.
So a family could apply for that and then like just do their, something like within their block, or maybe what about your apartment buildings? Like be able to do their floor maybe, or something like that.
right.
Lacey just echoed. She said that they're having different streets in her neighborhood are having mini events right now, and that seems to be working for them.
Very fantastic.
Since we're talking about, John brought up about planning in advance, there is something coming up. I think it's coming up next May, that is fantastic for neighborhoods to be involved in. And I'm going to butcher the name, but John, Liz, I think you'll know, the Jane Jacobs, Claudette want to know, what is it, Claudette?
I just call them the walks that they have. They pick. If that's what you're thinking of. They have
the Jane Jacobs walks, right?
They take different neighborhoods, and somebody will tell you all about it. Michael Emmerich did it in our neighborhood. Somebody who lived in another neighborhood would do it, and you just talk a little bit about the history and kind of pick your area, and it's kind of a nice thing.
And why I'm big on that, even though I can't remember the name of it, it is because studies are showing that people who have an understanding of the history of the neighborhood are more likely to stay longer and be more invested in their neighborhood. And so, even simple things like taking a walk and someone saying, oh, this street's called Shelby Avenue, and this is who Shelby was. Those kinds of things. This is the house that Jesse James lived in, which is actually in my neighborhood, by the way. Those kind of things are really interesting to people, and they generate excitement for where people live, and the potentially for more to live there longer is more likely.
And the name comes from Jane Jacobs, who wrote The Life and Death of Great American Cities, which was, it's one of those I had to read for school, but it was actually a very good book on urban development.
And she was a New York activist, neighborhood activist, who really went up against some of the biggest names that you've ever seen. If you get a chance to read it, there's several documentaries on her that you can watch if you're not a big reader, and just take time to do that. But it's the Jane Jacobs, or the Jane Walks is what they call them. That's what it is, the Jane Walks. But having one of those for your neighborhood in May may be a good alternative.
Mhm.
Liz, as a former board member of Metro Historic Commission Foundation, I will do a plug for Nashville Sites. Go ahead.
You have not gotten on nashvillesites.org. The Metro Historical Commission Foundation, along with Nashville Sites, funded it and got it. It's an app, and you can take different tours through Nashville, historical tours, and they're great. You can take it at your own leisure. They're adding more all the time. There's we did one on women's suffrage. There's several African American history ones, all throughout. There's architecture ones, so it's great. I keep plugging for one for West Nashville, but I haven't quite gotten that yet. It's since that is where the treaty oak was, but
Mhm.
you know, so it's a great thing if you have time to just, if you want to walk around and learn the history.
All right. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Any other thoughts or comments? Questions?
I
Okay,
will say
before we go, I got to show you my favorite Nashville night out against crime takeaway, giveaway. 1 year, Channel 4 decided to host us, and they wanted to create a memorable item. I think Valerie remembers this. And so they said they were going to buy flashlights. I'm
Mhm.
talking tens of thousands of flashlights that we ended up distributing it. And these things have lasted for like 30 years.
Wow.
And so, you know, Nashville, oh, it's backwards. Nashville Night Out, WSMV.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
They still work 30 years
Yeah.
later.
That was a
See,
really great
Mine is
gift.
this is what the chief gave out at ours one year, was little MNPD pigs. And that, you know, that was Chief Anderson gave those out.
Very good.
Jessica, in case you decide to do something special, donuts would be great for our group to get donuts.
Do you need edible donuts or like the stress ball donuts?
I'm sorry, I'm an edible donut kind of guy.
Sit on donuts.
Well,
And if you are, Valerie, real quick, if you are
Sure.
trying to fundraise for your event, talk to your local state and metro council, because they do all have that in their budget to help. And John Ray Clemens is ours, and he comes out every year to everything.
yeah.
And we get them all involved. So it's a good way for everybody to meet their person as well.
That's a good point to make, Liz. Any other fundraising ideas? Anybody else for folks' celebrations? So you said your council person? Is that what you said?
We reached out to our council people because we have two in our area. We also reached out to our state representative, our congressman. Our senators didn't respond, but our state senator did. Our state senator does. But
Yeah, that's good.
and also just local businesses. We have a bunch of businesses that donated.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you all do have a bunch. I wonder if interesting. A couple of people mentioned Kroger. So I wonder, do they have like a National Night Out budget for neighborhoods? You know what I mean? That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being with us this evening. A lot of good ideas about the Night Out Against Crime. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, John, for being here and helping us kind of think about what we're going to be doing this upcoming year. Thank you, audience, for your questions and comments. I really appreciate that. And remember, great neighborhoods don't happen by accident. Find your neighborhood passion and work hard to make your neighborhood a safe and vibrant place to live. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Night. Thanks, Valerie.
Take care. Night.
Thank you very much.